Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and I have a mineralogy lesson to share with you today. We're working through our Live Education Waldorf curriculum, and today's lesson is on sedimentary stone. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon geology is absolutely fascinating, and it tells a history of the world's geology. And we're going to be covering that information using this book called The Grand Canyon Geology by Greer Price, as well as the curriculum itself and a couple more online resources that are linked below specifically for this lesson. I did watch a couple of videos on the geology of the Grand Canyon in preparation for this lesson. I am working along my 13-year-old daughter, and we are going to be working through a main lesson book rather than doing these illustrations on a chalkboard. So I have two sets of color pencils. That one was a watercolor pencil set, and I don't think I'll end up using that one as much as my Kohinoor pencils and my Lyra color pencils. At this point, I'm just testing the colors so that I can find ones that are going to work for this illustration. Now, I do have two illustrations that I'm pulling from. The one from the book is a lot brighter and it appeals to me a lot more. The one in the curriculum seems a little bit more authentic with what the colors actually look like in nature. And while it's not maybe as distinguishable, each of the layers when you're looking at a photograph of the Grand Canyon, these layers are distinctly different, both geologically and by their color. And so I did want to use some colors that were a little bit more rich in order to really play up those differences in the illustration. I started out by doing the Colorado River at the bottom, then I'm going to pencil in the sort of a cross-section of the Grand Canyon. And I'm using two resources to figure out how to do these layers and how to label them. Now, in the curriculum, they're labeled by the type of stone, and in the book, it's labeled by the period of time and how they're defined in that respect. So different kinds of formations versus the different types of stone. So I wanted to include both, and so on one side, I will write the formations, and on the face of the cliff, I'm going to write the type of stone, and in some cases, they're one and the same. They're the same name. And I'm also going to do something a little bit differently this time around because I know that I want a really rich color, which means I'm going to be a little bit heavy-handed with my color pencils, especially on the cross-section side of the cliff side. I'm going to go ahead and write in with my fountain pen all of the different labels first, starting with the cliff side and then the open face side. But I am going to have to go back and forth and check because the illustrations aren't exactly the same, but they do give the same amount of layers. And so I'm going to go ahead and start from the bottom, and then I'm going to go to the top until I can make sure that they match in the middle because I am working with the fountain pen and I don't want to erase it. There is a special eraser that comes with this fountain pen if you so choose. It does erase this fountain pen, and then it comes with another pen that you can write over it. You just need to wait until the eraser dries the ink before you write over it. So I'm approaching these lessons a little bit differently than I have in the past when we worked through our mineralogy main lesson blocks. This curriculum requires a little bit more work in preparing the lessons, in my opinion, even though it does provide a lot of information. That its progression is a little bit different than what I've seen in other geology workbooks or textbooks or just the geology and earth science books and resources that we've used. It goes through talking about the two archetypal rocks to begin with. So we're starting with limestone and granite, limestone being the water rock and granite being the fire rock. So we're seeing those two archetypal rocks first and the minerals within them. And then we're going through the different land formations and how mountains are made. And then we circle back to talk about granite and limestone from the building materials perspective, because when you break down limestone, you can get cement and concrete and mortar. And when you break down granite, certain types of granite that are rich in iron ore, then you can get iron and thereby steel. And so we really looked at these two building materials that are extracted by these different rocks. We also looked at iron ore being produced in sedimentary rocks. And now with this lesson, we're looking at sedimentary rocks again, but this time through the lens of the Grand Canyon and the geology that took place in order to make the Grand Canyon. And what's even more exciting is what the Grand Canyon tells us about the past. So we looked at Pangaea, and even before Pangaea, we looked at what the Earth looked like and the continents at the time. And we found that the continents were smaller and they went through periods of ocean transgression. So there were times where water completely covered the Grand Canyon area. In fact, there were times where the coastline on the west side of the United States was nearly in Arizona and Utah and Nevada, and California didn't even exist. And the coast was actually a passive margin with not a lot of geological activity until subduction occurred and volcanic mountains occurred. And so in that time, there was water that covered the Grand Canyon area, and then it receded and it covered again. And so they can count several times when water was present in the Grand Canyon area, until a time when this entire area was lifted up through geological forces, through subduction or other tectonic activity, so that at one point this area were tall mountain peaks that were as high as the Himalayas, and then through erosion, a lot of those layers were just eroded away, and then through other geological activities which are still being discovered today, we have the work of water upon this plateau, which carved out this beautiful canyon. So that was a really great way to look at geology from a holistic perspective by focusing on something that's very specific. And I really love diving deep into this particular subject area so that we can understand this beautiful, world famous geological formation, and then understand the history behind it so that we can appreciate what the Grand Canyon can tell us about these different layers, the flora and the fauna, and the work of water and volcanic activity in this region. I hope that you're enjoying these lessons with our mineralogy main lesson block. Don't forget to check out the blog post that accompanies this video. I share all of the resources and the books and the projects that we've done. You can find that link down in the description box below. And if you'd like to see how we're homeschooling on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram at Pepper and Pine.